Dear colleagues, dear friends, a warm welcome. May I ask you to kindly take your seats? We're about to start, and welcome to our session on stabilizing a restless region, prospects for peace in the Middle East. What a title, and quite a timely title at a crucial point in time. My name is Nora Müller. I work for Körber Stiftung in Berlin, an organization whose motto is "It's better to talk to each other rather than about one another." And I think that's very much the spirit in which we should conduct this conversation here as well. The horrific massacre of October 7 has triggered an unprecedented escalation of violence between Israelis and Palestinians. As we all know, a ceasefire took effect on January 19th. The deal has been very fragile from the start, and right now, I think it is fair to say that it is really hanging by a thread, a very thin thread. So what will be next moves? Will war return? And what will be the longer-term political horizon in the Israeli-Palestinian theater, but also in the wider region? These are big questions for a great guest. Please join me in welcoming Gideon Sa'ar, the Foreign Minister of the State of Israel. Minister, great to have you with us here in Munich. So, looking at my watch, I see that time is of the essence, and I wanted to get us started by asking you, Minister. I mean, we've all followed the latest news when it comes to the ceasefire. What is Israel's playbook for the coming 24 hours?
Well, I would like to emphasize two things. First of all, presenting the issue as an Israeli-Palestinian war is, of course, a partial picture, since we were attacked from 7 fronts. We were attacked from countries we don't share border with, like Iraq, Yemen, or Iran. We hadn't initiated the war on any of these fronts. We retaliated. But to put everything on this horrible day that really triggered everything, I think it's a mistake, because what Israel faced here is something much bigger, a threat to its existence that we were able to confront successfully. Till now, we hadn't met yet the objectives of the war. And then I want to emphasize there won't be end to this war until we will reach all the objectives of the war. And sitting here, members, relatives of some of our hostages, most of them I know in person previously and met with. First of all, the war won't be over until we will bring all our hostages back home. Secondly, any hostage that come back home to his family bring us closer to our objective, this objective. So it is very important. Our decision is to continue to implement. There was a threat by Hamas to breach the agreement. Probably they regret. We will see.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the war aims, Minister, and one of them definitely is bringing back the Israeli captives. Another one is to really decimate Hamas or eliminate Hamas. Now, the question is whether and how that goal is achievable. I still have Tony Blinken kind of in the back of my mind, who earlier this week, this year, I think at the Atlantic Council, said the following: Hamas has gained as many new operatives as it has lost since the Gaza war began. Now, that of course implies the question.
Hamas, sorry?
It has gained as many new operatives as it has lost in the war, meaning that the war has led to a degree of radicalization which then brings people closer into the fold of Hamas again.
Radicalization led to this war. Only a very extreme ideology see killing of Jews as a religious commandment and seeks for the destroy of the Jewish state brought us to this war. This is clear. I believe that only a defeat of the radical axis led by Iran will bring stability to the region. And I can give you a very good example, and it is Lebanon. In Lebanon now we face a possible different future, and we saw some political developments since the Hezbollah was weakened dramatically during this war. And we have the opportunity, it's not a certainty, but it's an opportunity to remove Lebanon from the radical camp in the region, from Iranian occupation actually, to the moderate Arab camp. It only came because Hezbollah was defeated. The defeat of the radical axis is possible, and this is the only way to achieve stability in this part of the world.
Well, that's an ongoing question, isn't it? Whether a terror organization like Hamas or like Hezbollah can be defeated with military means alone, or whether there should be at some point what some people call a political horizon. But let me also...
But I want to correct something. These are not terrorist organizations. Belongs to the past when we are talking about these actors. These are terror states. And this is a new phenomenon. Also, America led a coalition to defeat ISIS when they established a caliphate. Because it is different, there is a difference between believing in a certain radical ideology and having a control over a state, over a territory. Like there is a difference between the Nazi ideology and the Nazi regime in Germany. The Nazi regime in Germany, controlling the state, can cause damages that Nazi ideology without controlling a state couldn't do. So there is a huge difference between the ideology and these terror states. These terror states must be defeated. And we also must do our utmost in order that Hezbollah will not control again in Lebanon. I'm not saying they will not exist as a political or ideological stream, I think very extremist, but there is a huge difference when they actually control themselves and not the government of Lebanon in the territory of Lebanon.
That point is taken, Minister. I wanted to ask you about the question of further radicalization in the region. We've all heard President Trump's plan for Gaza. Some people argue that rather than it being a contribution to a more peaceful region, this is sowing another seed of conflict and radicalization because it implies elements of forced displacement.
Do you think Gaza can be more radical than it is?
Well, I think that...
Let's see what happened in the past. We had two huge experiences. We had the experience with the Palestinian Authority brought from Tunisia to Gaza Strip during the 90s. Hamas and other terrorist organizations just became stronger afterwards. Then we had another experience, the unilateral Israeli withdrawal from Gaza Strip on 2005. We wanted to, by the way, I opposed that, but the majority in Israel supported that. And we withdrew from all the territory, dismantled all the settlements, even uprooted the graves from our cemeteries there. Maybe going back to the 67 border in this front. It brought peace, it brought stability, it brought security. No, it brought Hamas to power. So people who supported in the past those huge experiences that failed dramatically, I think should be more modest, criticizing President Trump's new ideas, or regional ideas, but I think it's a time to think differently from all the things that failed in the past. And we must do that. And let's be frank, is there any other place in the world when for someone who wants to immigrate, for example, let's assume there are people in Gaza Strip that wants to immigrate. It's more than assumption, okay? And there is, on the other side, you have states which are ready to accept them. If that happened in any other part of the world, that was a consensus. When it is in Gaza Strip, it's outrageous. But why? What happened to the principles of free choice, of free will?
Well,
Are the residents of Gaza prisoners of Hamas regime? This is the way we look at them?
The Gaza Strip is uninhabitable, Minister. I mean, the Gaza Strip is uninhabitable. I mean, to talk about free choice is it's not so easy in this context, isn't it?
Okay, I'm sure that there are a lot of people there that want to escape from this tyranny. And if there are countries in the world who are ready to accept, it's moral and it's humane. It's not something radical, and it was not perceived as something radical if it was connected to any other country or part of the world.
I'm not entirely sure about this, Minister,
okay.
But let me ask you about the regional dimension of this Gaza plan that President Trump put forward. What it has done is it has led to a stark rejection on the part of a number, if not all, of the Arab states in the region. Some of them, Israel wants to engage in a further path of normalization. And here, of course, Saudi Arabia is kind of the key prize. Wouldn't you say that there is a contradiction between the Gaza plan on the one hand, on the other hand, this aim of moving towards normalized relations with the kingdom?
I think that the first term of President Trump demonstrated that there is no connection between empowering the camp of peace and normalization in the region, bringing more states to this circle, and not dealing or not being hostages of the Palestinian issue. And
but this logic no longer works, does it?
We'll see. We'll see. At the end of this term, I wouldn't conclude after 1 week or 2 weeks. I will see, and we also will see at the end of this term whether it worked or not. I see something different. You mentioned Saudis, and the Saudis, from what I'm hearing, I don't know if it is true, are connected also to possible future negotiations with regard to Ukraine. So, from what I conclude, there is a certain engagement between Washington and the Saudis.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how that goes. And if there is one trademark to President Trump's foreign policy, it's unpredictability, I would say.
But
so
I can use another word, success, because we have today, look at the last 16 months, we had a very difficult war in our region, but not even one of the Arab countries in the normalization and peace camp quit from the agreements with Israel. So it is something that demonstrated strength, and that was achieved in the first term of President Trump. It was not achieved, even not one country, in the term of the previous administration. This is a fact.
Talking about the wider regional dimension, Minister, and before we open this to questions from the floor here, I wanted to ask you about Iran, and that is also where the regional states come into the picture. You are on record saying that Iran and preventing Iran from getting the bomb is a #1 strategic priority of your government. Now, looking at the weakening of the so-called axis of resistance, looking at the weakening of its main sponsor, namely Iran itself, this could all present a golden opportunity for your country to go and sort of take a final military move against Iran's nuclear program, which, as we learn, is advancing by the day. Now, what we hear from Washington is that President Trump prefers a diplomatic solution. Well, how does that change Israel's, or how does that affect Israel's calculus? I mean,
we care about the objective. The objective is to prevent Iran getting nuclear weapons. This will endanger not only our state, of course it will endanger the state of Israel because they are publicly speaking about the elimination of the Jewish state. It is also definitely bring the Middle East to an era of nuclear race. It will endanger Europe. So I believe it's not only an Israeli issue. We want to achieve the objective. President Trump made it clear it is his objective. Leaders of Germany, France, Britain say the same. If there is a way to achieve the objective by political means, very good. I don't see Iran ready to negotiations until now, yeah? We can see they refuse to negotiate until now. But what I think is that everyone speaking about negotiations thinks that the current administration will go to more or less similar agreement like the JCPOA. And so I don't think
it should be more inclusive.
It should be more effective. This agreement failed, and I think they will not go to the same agreement. If they will go to an agreement, it will be totally different. But again, I repeat, the most important thing is to meet the objective, to achieve the objective. This is very important since we see in Iran troubling developments. We see them moving to weaponization. We see them maybe in the light of what you described as weakening them, there are elements in Iran that thinks that maybe this is the answer, weaponization, and surely not Israel and not the international community cannot agree to a nuclear Iran.
So a military strike is not in the cards anytime soon?
Everything is optional. What is important is to achieve the means. I never spoke about what we will do. I spoke about the objective. It's important to achieve the objective. And I don't exclude the diplomatic path if it is possible. I don't see for the time being it's possible. And we are running out of time. They are running and we are running out of time. So time is of essence here, and I hope and I think that under the leadership of President Trump, it is more likely that we will meet the objective.
You said we're running out of time, Minister. We are indeed running out of time, but I have a final question for you, and it's not really a question. I would like to ask you to just complete a sentence, and here's my sentence for you. In 12 months from now...
I hadn't done that since primary school, I believe.
So it's always, you know, you kept the heart of a child. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's right.
So in 12 months from now, the Middle East will...
Be more safe.
Be more safe. That's very straightforward. And I have to thank you, Minister, for this conversation so far. and I will open it up for questions from our colleagues here on the floor. And I do see our colleague over here in the third row. You have the floor.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Jala, and I'm from Nablus. And my question to you is about security. So in having Hamas under your, supervision or control in the Israeli land or in Gaza or in the West Bank, it's much easier to predict what could happen in 10 years, for example. But when Trump's plan, it looks like it has a very positive reaction from the Israeli ministers, then you will have the Palestinians and the radical Hamas outside of Palestine. And outside of Palestine, it means that they have much more visibility to mobilize, much more access, and much more easier to engage with others, and then plan something and come back to Israel maybe 20 years after. So in the sense of Trump's plan, what do you see it could happen if you actually accept the displacement of all of Gazans maybe, and of course part of them is Hamas. So how do you see it in 20 years?
Israel took during the years very bold decisions, maybe mistaken, but bold decisions. Israel created the Palestinian Authority, bringing the PLO terrorists from Tunisia. Israel withdrew from all Gaza Strip. Israel more than gave a chance to peace process with the Palestinians. I mean, the Palestinians never had in the history of our country, never in history were sovereign in this land. What you call the Palestine is, Palestine is the name that Caesar Adrianus gave to the land of Israel when he conquered it. He also called Jerusalem after its destruction, and he built a new city on the soil of Jerusalem, called it Ilia Capitolina. But in the world, no one today remembers what's Ilia Capitolina, but everyone knows what's Jerusalem. So what you call Palestine is the land of Israel. And it's a pity that in spite of all our efforts during all these years, we hadn't found a partner to go to real peace, but we had enemies that never abandoned the path of terrorism, incitement, and the will to destroy Israel was much stronger than the will to build their own state.
Minister, if I may, just for the sake of clarification, so what you basically said is that, and you've been saying this for a long time, that a two-state solution is not an option from your point of view. So what then is the solution for the future of Israeli-Palestinian coexistence? Is it a one-state solution, or what do you envisage?
The framework that was brought by Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat in the Camp David Accords was an autonomy. There is no huge difference between the current PA and the idea of autonomy. The autonomy means self-rule. They rule their own life, but they don't have the means to endanger our security. What we found out, and we found it, we learned it in the most painful way, is to have militias western to the Jordan River. It is something which is extremely dangerous for our security. And I don't believe you can find a state without an army, for example. So we should invest more time speaking about regional frameworks, because I think that eventually when peace will achieved in the region in the future, it will be in regional frameworks. But the idea is of autonomy. Autonomy is something that can give the Palestinians self-rule and gives Israel security.
Let's go for more questions here from our colleagues on the floor. Don't be so shy. The gentleman here in the second row.
Good afternoon, Minister. You are a very considerately spoken member of your government amongst a group of people who are sometimes not so well understood. In the same way that you've discussed with us so reasonably your vision for the region, I would like your honest...
You didn't present yourself, by the way.
My name is Zaid Belbaji. I write for the Arab News. My question to you is, in your honest opinion, as you've addressed us honestly, is Israel big enough?
It's small. Tell you the truth, it's too small. Mainly in comparison to other countries in the region who are much bigger and not very populated. It is small. This is the truth. This is my honest answer. Israel is small, but it's a great nation.
All right. Who else would like to come in? I do see a hand over there at the back of the room. The mic is coming to you, sir.
My name is Carl Finke. I volunteer here, but my question is the JCPOA a kind of testament to perhaps a European ineptitude at solving problems of a region that is very far away from Europe in many, many senses, perhaps even in its logic of conflict?
I didn't get the question.
Does the JCPOA show that...
Shemaito? I don't think that President Trump wants to be back to the JCPOA. I don't think when you hear a diplomatic option, it's not necessarily the diplomatic option that had failed in the past. We know that there is no inspection at all. This agreement was breached, and we are in a very problematic situation. So I believe there should be a different solution. You can learn from other countries' experience. What happened in Libya, for example, when President Bush demanded to stop their nuclear program. We can learn also from examples that were successful, not only from those who are a clear and evident failure.
Minister, before we conclude, maybe let me just pick up one question that our colleague alluded to and you didn't really answer. That's the question of the European role in the region. I mean, some people would say that the EU is pretty sidelined when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian arena. How do you see that, and what can the EU contribute in terms of constructive contributions?
First of all, adopt a more realistic point of view and a more balanced one in order to be influential. I think this is mandatory, to be more realistic and more balanced from my point of view.
i.e. adopting the Israeli point of view?
Not adopting, not adopting our point of view, but when they come time and again to the same so-called solution that were already proved themselves as failures, it's not something that makes you effective.
I do know that it's 4 p.m. already, but I have a final hand by a colleague over here, and I wouldn't want to be remiss to call on you, sir. The mic is coming, and then after your question, we'll wrap it up.
Hi, Ruby Chen, father of a hostage, U.S.-German citizen. Minister, I'd like to ask you 2 questions. One, how do you see the last hostage coming out without coupling it with Gaza the day after? Number 2, to the attendees here, what would you ask or what would you request for them in order to get the last hostage out?
לא הבנתי אף אחת משתי השאלות.
The first question was how...
שאל אותי בעברית, אני אענה באנגלית.
איך מוצאים את החטוף האחרון בלי היום שאחרי שנפתור אותו? ב', בכנס, מה אתה היית אומר להם שיעזרו כדי להביא את החטוף האחרון?
First of all, to put this issue on the agenda all the time. And only when we see images like we saw last Saturday of starved and tortured people going out for freedom, there is, until now, we've heard about the starvation of the people in Gaza. But when we look at the images, we see people who are not starved. They look just fine, but are hostages. So it is first for other countries, diplomats, media, to put this issue on the agenda. And dealing with the issue, it's very complicated, because from their own free will, it is clear from the right minute that we will not see anything. So it brings you time and again dilemmas, how you can go forward. We find a way to go forward. We want to stick to it and implement it, even though it's tough and hard. And we came to a certain junction a few days ago, and we decided again. So just formulas of words won't create solutions. We were determined, we were consistent. We had, in the beginning of this war, 256 hostages in the hands of Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Every hostage that returns brings us closer to our objective, and we'll continue to work in order to achieve that. We are totally committed.
Minister, we know how busy you are here in Munich, so thank you very much for having taken the time to speaking with us. I think it was a good example of talking to each other rather than about one another. We look forward to having you here again, and thank you all for actively listening
Shabbat Shalom to
and for
everyone.
great questions, and Shabbat Shalom.